So over the past few years, I've been able to work with some of the biggest brands. Dr. Squatch, Microsoft Bing, and MagFast, using Printify. I created videos that have gained millions of views, that have gained hundreds of thousands of followers. And I traveled to some of the best places in the world. I mean, the places that are on most people's vision boards. And I built a personal brand that allows me to charge clients $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 a month to help them do the same. And this is the part where most people expect me to say I am miserable or unfulfilled, but the truth is I've never been happier. But, and there's always a but, I can't say that I'm living up to my promise, which is to help people do the same. And listen, it's really easy to lose sight of the bigger picture when you're standing in the frame. Like, I was so busy living life that I needed a near-death accident to remind me why I'm alive. Now, thanks to that not so subtle reminder, I have taken the countless hours of studying content, countless hours of producing content, and ultimately just mastering platforms to produce what I've been calling the content manifesto. Sometimes I call it the viral Bible. Listen, I've been so busy focused on building this thing that I haven't really taken the time to name it. So maybe y'all can help me. Either way, this is my gift to anybody that is looking to have success on social media, which actually brings me to my mantra, which is that success on social media is a science. Cultivating content is chemistry. Basically, what that means is it requires the right formula. So if you're struggling to actually have success, it means that you probably haven't developed the right formula. And so I'm gonna help you develop one. And I know that it's guaranteed to deliver, not just because a lot of people pay me a lot of money to do this, but because it's rooted in three basic elements. Number one is platform mechanics, which means how platforms actually work. Number two is communication psychology. And number three is the laws of attention. And so to get there, we're gonna cover 5 basic sections. It's gonna be virality versus vibration, platform playbooks, content communication, formats and formulas, and then intention, attention, and retention. And I'm gonna tie all of this stuff together, and I'm gonna create some frameworks that will allow you to work with this across any niche that will ultimately help you get to the bag and beyond. So get ready for what I hope is gonna be life-changing for some people, because it almost cost me my life in order to make it. So let's jump in. All right, so when we talk about success on social media, most people assume that that means you're gonna go viral, because the assumption is if I go viral, a bunch of people will see my content. If a bunch of people see my content, they will also love my content. If they love my content, they will pay me and I will be a badillionaire. And while that sounds facetious, it kind of is possible. I mean, we've seen it happen before, not to mention money does follow attention, but that's not a strategy. And in order to create a strategy, you have to first understand virality. Because a lot of people think that virality is what happens when a really big account shows my content to all of its followers, meaning a lot of people. And that's not how virality works. In fact, virality is the opposite. Things go viral when a bunch of different accounts find a collection of reasons, a multitude of reasons to actually connect around one piece of content. And the way that they connect around that content is by sharing it. And so what that means is sharing is the most important part of virality. Luckily for you, you're here, and I've created a framework that actually talks about how content gets shared. And I've studied this across a multitude of different niches, creators, platforms, etc. And so I can tell you that this framework will give you some of the key and crucial elements and pieces that will make your content more shareable, and by default, more likely to go viral. As a matter of fact, if you look at the most shared content in your niche or any niche, I can guarantee that that piece of content hits on multiple pieces of this framework. So let's dive into it. The name of the framework is virals. Yes, plural with an S, because the more of these elements that you incorporate into your content, the more likely it is that your content will be shared, which means there's a higher probability of you going viral. So let's break it down. V is for value. People share content that aligns with their values, but they also share content that makes them seem valuable. So if I come across a piece of content and I think that me sharing this is going to make me look more knowledgeable, more witty, or seem like I'm ahead of the curve, I'm going to share it because it raises my social capital. AKA, it's gonna make me look like I'm putting you on game. And if I can be the guy that puts you on game, then I have some value. So again, V is for values, not just sharing things that align with my values, but things that will make me look more valuable. Now, next is I for integration, because people share content about things that are already integrated into their lives. What I mean is people with dogs send content about dogs to other dog owners because that subject is already integrated into our lives. Now, the thing about integration is it can be something that is like a day-to-day integration, like a dog, or it can be something that is more of an immediate integration that sparks a memory about a moment. Think about the Super Bowl. You see this happen a lot with trends, right? Kendrick Lamar performed at the Super Bowl. He did a dance that became a moment. That moment now becomes a trend and something that everybody wants to do because that moment is now integrated into our immediate memory. We all just saw him do this dance. And so now me seeing you do that dance re-sparks that integrated memory from your piece of content. So if you want to make your content more shareable, make sure it covers topics about things that are already integrated into your followers' lives or things that are going to be integrated into their immediate memory. Next is R for resonate. If you can create content that sparks or triggers a deep emotion, that will be shared like wildfire. And those emotions can be joy, amazement, inspiration, sorrow, misery, or fear. Because the more intense the emotion, the more likely it is to be shared with people who we expect to have that same emotional reaction. As a matter of fact, if you share a piece of content that you find funny with someone and you expect them to find it funny and they don't, sometimes you might feel offended because you expected this piece of content to resonate with that person. And we'll break this down more. So let's just move on to A for action. Content that invites people to take action or participate in something is going to be shared naturally. Now, TikTok actually built their entire platform on this way back in the day, right? Anytime you stitched or did a duet or participated in a trend, that was you taking action. You weren't just consuming content, you were actually participating in it. And because you participated in it, that now makes you invested and makes you a lot more likely to want to share. The crazy thing is this works even if you have no idea why you are actually taking action in the content. Think about the ice bucket challenge. People were running outside, pouring ice on themselves and nominating friends, not even realizing that this was all about a charity. They just wanted to be a part of the action. Next is going to be L for leverage. People share content that they can use as social or practical currency, meaning if there's something like a money-saving hack or a productivity tip or just a solution to a common problem, if I can leverage this piece of content for my personal benefit, I'm a lot more likely to share it with people who I expect to feel the same. Last and certainly not least is S. And it stands for stories. And it actually is the most powerful driver for shareable content. And it's because human beings are natural storytellers. Our brains are actually hardwired to remember stories. It's the original way that we stored information. And so if you can create content that has a message that gets wrapped in a really good narrative, it's a lot more likely to be shared. Actually, even if the content doesn't have a good message, you can still actually have virality. Think about Evie's Universe. He's got 4.2 million followers on TikTok with no relevant messaging, just stories that are culturally intriguing, and he does have a consistent signature. We'll talk more about that later. And then there's Khalil Storyteller, who built his entire account telling stories. And then there's probably the most popular, which is Ray William Johnson. He's got 17.9 million followers just from retelling other people's stories. And now you might be thinking, hey, these accounts are built on just storytelling. How is this relevant to me? Well, let me break this down. Let's take a look at a creator who got 400 million views without having a big account, without using a fancy camera, without doing any editing. All this creator had was a great story and a phenomenal hook. I'm talking about Rissa. Teesa. And I'm going to break down her viral content series called Who the F Did I Marry? And I'm going to give you the actionable tips that you can include in your own content. Now, first, let's just acknowledge how wild this is because 400 million views is actually more than a Super Bowl. And before we break down her story, we got to talk about her hook because she used a three-piece combo that not even Floyd Mayweather could have defended. And the first punch she threw was negativity bias. Because that question alone, who the F did I marry? It immediately signals that something is wrong because that's never a question you expect somebody to ask. If you got married, we expect you to know who it is. And so starting her video with negativity bias is brilliant because our brains are hardwired to pay more attention to negativity than positivity in order for us to stay alive. Think about this. If you're walking in the woods and you hear birds chirping, that's positive. It's a great sound. But if you all of a sudden hear a twig snap, you're going to look to wonder and try to see who that is because that signals danger. It's the same thing that happens when you hear a car crash. Your first instinct is to look and pay attention to what's going on. And her title actually tapped into that very instinct. Hey, real quick, if you're finding some value in this video, then you should probably know that the content strategy that we're covering is exactly what I teach inside of the Content Chemistry Clinic. This is a 6-week virtual series that's led by me. It's live, so you can ask all the questions that you want. You get feedback in real time. This isn't for beginners, though. It's for established entrepreneurs who are successful, but you're stuck at like the same follower count. You're getting low engagement, or you're just not really sure what to post. But you do know that you need to be consistent to drive revenue. Now, in 6 weeks, what you'll have is a custom content playbook system that will break down what to make, how to build something that is simple, and you'll get your personal story formula that helps you stand out against every other person in your industry. And you'll know exactly what to post in order to build authority with your audience. Now, one of my clients went through it and she ended up going from 2,000 to 90,000 followers in 6 months, and she used these exact same methods. Now, I'm only accepting 8 people per clinic. There is an application that's required, but the link is below. And if you're ready to stop guessing with the post, go ahead and click it. And let's get back to the video. Instinct. And so here's how you can use negativity bias in your content. If you have a statement, take a beat, take a moment, figure out how you might be able to reposition or reframe this statement from a negative perspective. I'll give you an example. I created a piece of content that did over 500,000 views, and my hook said, "Your goals are keeping you poor." Now, I could have easily just said, "Hey, you should set bigger goals. Bigger goals might help you." But tapping into that reframe, that negativity bias, triggers that same sense of curiosity and danger because it makes us feel like we are missing out on something. How is it that my goals are keeping me poor? And so while most people might make a piece of content that says, "Here's how you can make $100," something that might be stronger would be a piece of content that says, "Hey, you not doing this thing is actually costing you $100. Let me tell you what it is." Because we as human beings want to avoid loss or danger in any way possible. So take a second, go back and look at some of your old content and see how you might be able to reframe some of your hooks using negativity bias. Now, the second haymaker she threw was by using curiosity loops. Because that question alone, "Who the F did I marry?" that makes us want to know, wait, what happened? Who did you marry? Why don't you know? And why are you asking me? And see, curiosity is one of the most powerful things that you can do to create content because human beings have a desire to close that curiosity loop. So if you open it, we will stick around until we feel satisfied to close that loop. Think about the statement, "Curiosity killed the cat." The end of that is, "But satisfaction brought him back." We have to close that loop. And that title creates an immediate question that demands a resolution and our attention. And so the way that you can use this in your content is try to create moments that makes the audience wonder, wait, what happened? Instead of creating content where they can assume what's going to happen next. So maybe you want to shift around some of the details that I have them wondering how we got here in the first place. Starting a piece of content with, "I almost lost my life," is way more powerful than, "Hey, let me tell you about the most dangerous day I ever had." The next thing she did was she hit us with a universal experience because no, not everybody's been married, and no, not everybody's been in this exact relationship, but we've all been through a situation where we have felt betrayal. And this can be from a friend, a coworker, a family member. Maybe you had a situation where you saw a tin can that had cookies on it and you opened it expecting to have a sweet treat and nothing was in there but buttons and sewing and needles. And I apologize, that's a bit personal. Anyway, you can use this in your content by inviting the audience to be a participant in the hook. Some of the best versions of this are hooks that start like, "Have you ever had a moment when?" "Have you ever had that feeling when?" These are things that invite people into your content by asking them if they've had a shared experience. And that creates a desire for us to relate or understand even if we haven't, and that's powerful. And just to make sure she really knocked it out of the park, she actually threw another hook in there, which we're gonna call flow. By her stating that the video was just part 1, this let us know that this is a part of a series, and human beings love to consume content in episodes because it gives us something to look forward to. So to use this in your content, think about creating a series based on topics or subjects that you know have worked well before. And so while she created a hook that was destined to stop the scroll, she still needed to create something that would keep us there. And so for this, I like to use an analogy. Social media is like an ocean. People who are scrolling are on boats, and your hook is like a dock. It's an invitation for them to pull up and park. But when you get to a dock, you kind of just tie your boat there because you don't know if you're going to stick around for a while. If you're somewhere in the ocean and you're going to be there for a while, you typically anchor down. And in order to go viral, you need a really big boat that holds a ton of people. And those big boats usually have multiple anchors. And when you create content, there are 5 simple anchors that you can use to keep people around. People anchor down in content when they are entertained, they are educated, they are emotionally elevated, they are socially connected, or they are validated. And Rissa Teesa's story did all 5. Her storytelling format alone was entertaining. There was shock, awe, suspense, surprise. It was everything that you need in a good Netflix docuseries. Then she gave us education. I mean, she was literally telling us all of the signs to look out for. This was basically a guidebook on how to spot red flags in a narcissist. Next, she gave us emotional elevation because her story was so horrendous that it made us feel better about ourselves because human beings are creatures of comparison. And whenever we see someone in a worse situation than something that we've been in, we automatically start to have sympathy for them, which makes us feel emotionally elevated for not having to have gone through that situation. Pro tip, in order to do this, that usually requires a moment of vulnerability, but we'll touch on that later. Now, social connection might have been her most powerful punch because it means that the story can be felt by almost anybody, regardless of race or religion, if you are rich, if you are poor, if you have pronouns or no pronouns. A wide range of people can feel socially connected because we've had a similar experience in some kind of a relationship. One where you have expectations of how a person will be and they don't live up to them. And that social connection that we share in this situation leads us right into the next haymaker, which is validation. See, she made us feel validated because now everybody was able to say, you're right. It was them who switched up, not me. I knew I wasn't crazy. As a matter of fact, her story was probably confirming suspicions that people already had about relationships that they were in. And while your content might not be about relationships, you can still help people feel validated by helping them escape accountability. Here's an example of what that might look like. Maybe I make a piece of content that says, I know you're tired of this algorithm playing in your face and not showing your content to people who actually follow you. It's the algorithm that sucks, not your content. See, that's the validation that most people are seeking because they'd rather blame the system instead of themselves. But you're different because you're here and you just got the 3 keys to a crucial hook, plus the 5 anchors that will keep people hooked. But unfortunately, there's a caveat because see, in 2025, we're seeing a shift in social media where the value in content has gone from viral to vibe. Think about it like this. Going viral is like being on a billboard in Times Square for 24 hours. Yes, millions of people might see you, but once you're gone, they're not thinking about you. Whereas vibe content is like having your name on the door of a smaller building forever. Yeah, less people might see it, but the right people know exactly where to find you. And so when I say vibe content, I literally mean vibrational, and here's why. When 2 objects vibrate at the same frequency, we call that resonance. It's that feeling you get when you come across something or someone and it just instantly connects. And that's where the value is because we all know connections create conversion. And here's the best part, is most people who are creating content are still super focused on reach, which means there's a ton of opportunity for you to create content that resonates. Which basically means that you're creating content that aligns perfectly with your audience's current state. You're speaking directly to their needs and their desires. See, because reach will get you attention, but resonance will get you affinity. And while attention might lead to likes, shares, and comments, affinity is what leads to customers, clients, and a community. Because someone seeing your content is completely different from someone seeing your value. And so while viral content is focused on what you create, vibrational content is more focused on who you create for. And there are 6 content chakras that you need in order to create a vibe. And I say chakras because these are not just questions, but these are things that you actually have to unlock. And let's just run through them. The first one is who they see. Next is where they are. After that is what they are going through. Next is what they desire, followed by how they feel, and then most importantly, why they haven't gotten it yet. Now, let's dive into it. First off is who they see. Notice I said who they see and not who they are, because this is deeper than just demographics. Yes, those matter, but those are just surface level. We need identity markers, values, self-perception. So we need to know who they see themselves as now and who they see themselves becoming. Because the job of your content is to bridge that gap. And so you need to know, whose content do they already consume? Who do they not like in the field or niche that you're in? Who do they align with in terms of values? The more of these that you understand, the easier it is to position yourself as the only solution to their problem. Now, here's the hack. Nobody expects you to get these answers right on the first try. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to answer them at all. Instead, you need to get really, really good at asking the questions that cause people to tell you these answers. And the next question that you need to ask is where they are. And no, this is not geographical. While yes, location might matter for language barriers or time barriers, it doesn't really help with vibration. For that, you need to know where they are in terms of awareness, because some people are problem aware, meaning they know they have a problem, but they don't even know that a solution exists. And for this, your content should not talk about your solution, but it only talks about the results. Next is people who are solution aware. They know that there is a solution for their problem. They don't know the right one to use, which usually means they haven't seen a person that they believe can help them because they haven't heard a message that actually resonates. And so for this, you need to create content that talks about case studies, past results, or social proof. Because the layer after that is people who are product aware, meaning they know that you exist. They know you have a product that could be a solution for their problem, but they might not know everything it solves or how you are different from the rest. And so for this, you want to create content that talks about your process, your unique value, and how you are different. And then you have people who are most aware. These are the people who know exactly what your product does. They might have even gone to the site and put it in the cart and just never checked out. And sometimes their hurdle is mindset or finances, but most of the time it's because you haven't created a sense of urgency. And so this content should talk about the bonuses that you offer or the limited time that you have to solve these problems with this program at this price, and tell them what they could accomplish and how they might be delaying their own success. Now, the next chakra you need to unlock is understanding what they are going through. This is about highlighting the experience that they are having as a result of not having a solution. So you need to understand the struggles, the pain points, the challenges. What is this stopping them from doing? If somebody says that they want to get fit, it might be because they actually want to be able to run around and chase their kids. And being unhealthy is stopping them from doing that. The more precisely you can name and speak to their experience, the more resonance you can have with your content. The goal is to have somebody watch your content and for them to think, it's like you're inside of my head or reading my diary. That's when you create perfect resonance. The next chakra is what they desire, and this is different from what they want, because what people want and what they actually desire are like distant cousins. They might be in the same family, but not in the same state. For example, people go to the store and buy a drill because they want to hang up a picture, but what they desire is to have a reminder of the memories that picture brings. Now, that's a Seth Godin example, but let's go a layer deeper. For me, I know most people say that they want a bigger audience, but what that really means is you want more people who can buy your product or service. So instead of me saying, here's how you get more followers, I might say, here's how you build an audience that will buy everything you offer. Or we can go more broad and we can talk about money, because everybody's reasoning for why they might want money is different. For somebody, maybe I'm making content that says, here's how you buy that Rolex. For somebody else, maybe I'm making content that says, here's how you buy that house for your mom. For somebody else, I might be saying, here's how you make sure your kids never have to struggle. See, what they want is universal. It's money, but what they desire is completely different. And so knowing this builds another level of content that resonates. Next up is how they feel. And part one is how do they feel about not having a solution to their problem? But part two is how do they feel about themselves and their own ability to solve that? And so to address this, we create content that inserts stories about people who may have felt similar, or we try to humanize that experience by stating how many people have felt just like this. And the last chakra is why they haven't gotten it yet. And this is all about understanding if they've tried another solution and what invisible forces might be in the way. A lot of times people who get to that most aware category will be motivated by content that addresses this chakra. And so for this, You can create content that speaks about your guaranteed results or how your success is their success. And this also allows you to create that sense of urgency because you can say, I only work with a small set of people so that I can make sure everybody is achieving the thing that they want. And now, you might unlock all of the chakras, but the wildest part to understand is that the answer to each of these questions can be different. And it's not just based on the end user, but it's also based on the platform that they find you on. And no, this is not a theory. People themselves have actually confirmed it. I don't know if you remember that meme that was going around that said, me on LinkedIn, me on TikTok, me on Instagram, me on YouTube. People were literally telling you that they are different people on different platforms. And think about it, the things that you consume on YouTube are not always the same as the things that you consume on LinkedIn or Instagram. And so this will lead us into the next section of the manifesto, which is platform playbooks, where we are going to break down the mechanics and the distribution metrics so that you can understand what the platforms prioritize, how they categorize your content, and how they grade your account. Because knowing these things is going to help to ensure that your content lands in the right audience that vibes with you. So for now, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll be there to give you guys some feedback, and I'll see you in the next module as we get one step closer to the bag and beyond.